Your boy C-Roc, Mike Ciorrocco, and you're listening to the What Are You Made Of podcast with Mike C-Roc, sponsored by Nations Lending. This is episode 1, and I'm really excited to be here. I'm excited to share with you some stories, my main story, but also hear some of your stories and engage with you on what's made you, and that's where What Are You Made Of came from. I'm going to get into this story with you guys, and it got to bear with me because it does hit home with me. It goes back to when I was 11 years old, and I still can feel the emotions from it. To this day, I'm 42, still feel it. Just to get started, I came from a broken family. Like a lot of you maybe listen to this, came from a broken family as well. But one of the things, I was always loved as a kid, man, as good. But when I was 8 years old, I bought into my dad's sales tactics of moving in with him and leaving my mom, who I'd lived with, and went to my dad's every other weekend as a kid. So when I was 8 years old, I broke my mom's heart, moved in with my dad full time, went to my mom's every other weekend, and that's a risk that I took at that time, thinking at that time as an 8-year-old, as a mature 8-year-old, that, hey man, I need to go out and find something else. Like I felt like I needed some other to get out of my comfort zone, even at that young age. So for 3 years, there were some good times, but for 3 years there were some things that went on, and this isn't to bash my dad by any means or anything like that, because I love him to death, even though we don't talk at this moment. But after 3 years, emotional, physical abuse, I just didn't feel comfortable anymore being there. I knew I had to get out of that environment. I talk about culture a lot. You'll hear me talking about culture a lot, but I had to get out of that culture. I had to get out of that environment, because I realized, and just like I will recommend for all of you, if you're in a culture, whether it's at work, community, even family, the culture's not right for you to propel yourself to another level, not get complacent, not get comfortable, something that's holding you back, creating limits for you. I'm going to encourage you to figure out a way to get out of that culture. And, as far as business goes, sometimes you may have to try to start with management and go to management and talk to them about what you see and what you think could help. Or if you're in management or ownership, you should start thinking about the culture that you have and eliminate people from that culture or from that environment if the culture's not where you want it to be, if you're going to build one. So anyway, I had to get out of that culture, when I was about, 11 years old, I'm sorry. And I was mature enough to know, I said, I need to talk to my mom about this and get her to file some papers or do something. Because every weekend that I would come home from my mom's house to my dad's, where I lived full time, I'd get a sick feeling in my stomach. And I remember there was hills going back to his house up in Pennsylvania, and my stomach, I just couldn't even take the car ride. I was just like nervous and just didn't feel right. So I made that decision to get out of there. So one day I come home from school, and my dad had this legal papers, I remember. And as soon as I walked in the door, he's like, "What is this?" And I walked on eggshells in that house. So I put my hands up like, I don't know. He said, "Go to your room and wait for me." So I went back there and sat on my bed and just sat there and waited. And I'm like, oh boy, this is going to be, something. So he came in the room, and he had that envelope. He opened it up, and he said, "It says here you want to move back with your mom. Is that true? You sure you want to do that?" I said, "Yeah, I think it's time. I do. I want to move back with my mom." And, my dad was my hero. He had a masonry company. I think he still does. But he always had a wad of cash in his pocket, wad of $100 bills. And I always looked up to him for that. That it wasn't about necessarily money. It wasn't about the money being a thing. It was about what we could get with money, or what we did with money, or what trips we took with money. I just knew that if you had money, you could do what you wanted to some extent, with traveling or buying things or doing things, or with your time. And so I noticed that at a young age. And so he took this wad of $100 bills out of his pocket, peeled one off, crumpled it up, and threw it at me. I remember this as clear as day. He threw it at me and said, "Here, you're going to need this when you're living on the streets with your mother one day." Now, keep in mind, I'm 11 years old, sitting there, and I remember this to this day. I remember this going through my mind, that I can't be the only one this has happened to. I can't be the only one that someone's given up on. And I didn't know how I was going to do it, but at that moment, at 11 years old, like I said, clear as day, I remember this. I thought, you know what? I'm going to help other people that have gone through this. And I'm not going to let him win. I'm going to fight, claw, nail, whatever, scrape and claw to not let him win, and then to help others that people have been giving up on. And so at that moment, I didn't know the direction or how I was going to get there, but I knew that I was committed to that mission. And from that point on, that has been my mission. And whatever I do, one, you can't help others until you help yourself. So I've been really focused from a young age to really, help myself, better myself. And then everything I did, I tried to be the best at it. Now, I'm not the most athletic person in the world, but I played sports growing up. And I've always been known as a hustler. Wasn't always the best player on the team. However, hustling and giving effort was never my problem, because I always wanted to be the best. And I always wanted to try to provide an example for others, because I think that is the first start to helping people, is to become a person where you lead by example. And then when people see that, they're attracted to that. And then they can come to you for help, because a lot of times you can't help people until they want to help. They want you to come to them for help, or they want to come to you for help. Because if you start doing the other stuff, which I still have an issue with today, is you try to help people and then they resent you for it when they're not ready to be helped. So I think that's at a young age, I figured that out. So anyway, as my career grew, from going to college at Salisbury State University, which is Salisbury University now, got into real estate sales. I got into sales in 1998, in-home sales, doing hard closes that night. You go in, spend an hour to 3 hours with people and try to close a deal that night. Went through that for 8-9 years. Had a great mentor, Joe Aida, business owner, but great mentor in not just sales and business, but life. He showed me what it was like, or what a true manager and mentor should be. Great family man, morals, ethical, do good things happen is one thing he taught me all the time. He said all the time. But for 8 or 9 years, I worked with Joe, learned a lot about life. And I think, that wasn't my end game. That wasn't my career to stay in home sales. I knew that, but I think I went through that period of time. I think we all go through things for periods of time where we go and learn what we need to learn for future endeavors, for things that we're going to be destined for in the future. So I learned a lot about sales. I learned a lot about dealing with people, being in tough, uncomfortable positions. I mean, sometimes we'd drive an hour and a half one way. The people wouldn't show up to the house, and then we'd turn around and have to go back an hour and a half the other way. How to deal with those adversities and push through those things, and still try to sell something at the end of the day when you got to the next house where people were ready to listen to you. Those are the kind of things that I learned there. How to learn and how to deal with other salespeople that are working with you, and their emotions that they're going through when they're trying to sell and try to make money on a 100% commission job. Those are the kind of things that I learned, in that in-home sales business. From there, in 2005, got into real estate, man, and was in Delaware. Was top listing, top sales agent pretty quickly. I just didn't like it. It wasn't my end game either. I just didn't like showing people around houses. I didn't see myself on HGTV one day, like the Property Brothers or something. So I stayed in that for about a year, kept my license for a while. But I have one of my best friends, Chris Short, was in the mortgage business, and he would take care of my clients with their financing needs a lot. And one day I said to Chris, I know you're an hour and a half away from where I live, that office, but what do you do? Like, what the mortgage business? Explain this to me. I want to get in this. And so, he was like, nah, you're one of my best referral sources. I don't want to bring you out of where you are now. But he was also concerned with getting in the mortgage business and having a period of time where you got to develop your skills and learn, and before you can really make the money you're used to making and go beyond that. But fortunately enough, I told him that I still wanted to do it, and I'm not listening to him, and I'm going to do it anyway, because I was already committed to doing it, and I think I was just going to figure out how to make it happen. So I ended up driving an hour and a half each way for 5 years doing the mortgage thing. But from the beginning, the first year, busted out and had no problems making money. And then ever since, that was 2006, ever since that year, 2006, made more money every year after that. Because one of the things that Joe taught me at my old company in in-home sales was you always want to have a better year than the year that you had before. So you may have months where you have a little bit of a roller coaster. You never want to have these big roller coasters, but he talked to me about every year being better off than the year before. Now, that's not just in business, your money, but it could be your family situation. It could be your health, your physical, being in shape, your strength, your mental game. But that's one thing that always stuck with me from back then with Joe, working with Joe. And, you know, the other thing I was very fortunate about, my mom, she's not a perfect lady, even though who's perfect, right? But one thing she always did was she taught me about God. She taught me about praying, and she taught me to always keep my chin up and stick to my guns. She used to use that term a lot, stick to your guns. So I think I might have like flip-flopped back and forth when I decided to move back with my mom or something, and I was always scared of it. She said, stick with your guns. If you feel strongly about something, stay with it until the end and complete it. And I remember that still too from when I was 8 or 9, 11 years old, something like that. She said, stick to your guns. So think about that. When you have something that you really believe in and commit to, how often do you flip back and forth and change your mind because you're scared of failure? You're scared of what people might think of you. You could be scared of numerous things or just not sure. So that's a lesson I learned when I was younger. Part of my story is, you know, stick to your guns, commit, and go after what you want. And, you know, I'm still human. I don't do it all the time. I'm sure there's some times where I don't commit like I should. But for the most part, people that know me know that when I want something, I tell people about it and then I go after it and I commit to it. And I recommend that for everyone. And it's something that you have to practice. But I'm lucky at a young age that I had that. So getting back to, I was very fortunate to have a mom that loved me. And, you know, look, when I moved back there, I moved somewhere that had a lot of money. Well, that's subjective, but had more money. Went to some place where we lived in a $30,000 home. It was an old brick home, 30 to 40,000, something like that. Didn't have air conditioning. And we drove around in hand-me-down cars. When we went on vacation, we would take black trash bags as our suitcases and luggages. And I guess we were fortunate enough, and we looked at it as we were fortunate enough to be able to go on vacation. And we would go down to Wildwood or something and stay in a motel. The heart of Wildwood, I remember it. And we'd have our black trash bags filled with our clothes. But anyway, but I was fortunate to have that. And also, I had a guy in my life that my mom married who I consider my father. His name was George. And you see, George, when he married my mom, didn't have any children. And my sister Kim and I, he took us in like we were his own. And I was very fortunate enough to have him at that young age when I made that move, because he was the type of guy, one, you do good things happen. Do bad things happen. Very cut and dry, black and white. Told you what he felt. Was hard on us. And you know what? At that age, you know, I didn't like it. Of course, nobody likes to have people being hard on them. But I needed it at that age, man. I needed someone to come in and show me what it was like to be a man, what it took to be a man, how a man was supposed to act. And, you know, those you know, we lost George in January to a sudden heart attack. He was doing what he loved. He was out hunting. And unfortunately, we lost him. But I think he was here on this earth to do what he was meant to do, which was to bring me, my sister, and my two brothers, Casey and Shane, up into this world knowing what to do, what not to do. You know, listen, he didn't have a lot of money, but he was good with money, and in fact that he could get by on a little bit. And so I know for all of us, and for those of you listening, it's very difficult sometimes to get by on a little bit. Some of us, Grant Cardone says 76% of people live paycheck to paycheck, right? So a lot of people aren't good with money. But anyway, George gave us the foundation to become men, to be not only productive, but one thing he did was he taught us too, there's no limits to what you can do. You can do whatever you want. And so I was very fortunate to have that as well. So, and by the way, the whole point of this is for me to share with you my story. And that's where this "What Are You Made Of" movement comes from. Everybody's got a story. And everyone can inspire millions of people if they just share that story. And it takes courage. I'm going to tell you, it's not easy to do this. I know that already. But I'm still going to challenge you guys all to come out and share your stories with me. Come on to the Facebook group, "What Are You Made Of" with Mike C-Roc. It's open right now. And soon we may shut her down to just private invites. But right now it's open. I want to get people in here. I want people to be inspired by the stories people share, starting with mine. And, the things that I learned growing up. Again, I was lucky to have my mom, my stepdad, George. But also, my father. Look, none of us are perfect. And, I still look up to my dad for certain things, and he's probably got reasons I don't know about, because I don't know, none of us know the whole story, right? He may have reasons. I don't know how to justify some of the things that he did, but there may be some reasons or things that he went through. I don't know. I've already forgiven him for anything that could be perceived as negative. I've forgiven my stepmom. I've forgiven anybody that's ever made anything, because, listen, I'm not perfect. And one thing I will point out to you is I always worry about fixing my issues, things, my shortcomings before I try to point out anyone else's. So, but, I've been blessed. I know there's people that have it worse off than me. I know there's people that have it better. There's always somebody worse, somebody better. But I want to share that with you because I know a lot of people can relate to that story. And hopefully you can see that you can make two choices when things happen bad, right? It's up to you. You can play the victim role and then have everybody trying to feel sorry for you and making excuses of why you're not accomplishing things in your life, why you're overweight, why your health's not where it's supposed to be, why you're living paycheck to paycheck, or even worse, building debt, bad debt, why you're not advancing in your career. It could be a lot of things that you can make excuses for. And what I want to do is I want to show you what I did. And I'm not to where I want to be, by the way. I'm by far where I want to be. But I want to share with you today what I decided to do. I took the other route, which was, hey, let me show you what I'm made of. Get your popcorn ready, pops. Because maybe I'm stubborn like that, but you know what? It's a good stubborn in a way. So anyway, that's what I wanted to share with you today. Please, please, please get on the page. What Are You Made Of with C-Roc? My website is www.themikecroc with no K, C-R-O-C, themikecroc.com. I have a weekly blog that's up there on topics that I think that can help you, that are basically things that I'm preaching myself about. And, when I'm working in Nations Lending, by the way, this show is sponsored by Nations Lending, Mid-Atlantic. We do home loans. Let me stop for a little commercial real quick. But we do home loans. We're very aggressive with credit score, go down to 580. We have programs with as little as 0% down required. All those products are great, but what we really like to do is we have a slogan at Nations Lending, home loans made human. There's a lot of companies out there that are internet companies and telemarketing type loan officers, are just automation and no human touch. And nowadays in the mortgage industry with all the guidelines, you need a human touch. Every single day, I've been doing this since 2006, every single day there's something that comes up that we don't know the answer to, or it's a different scenario than we've seen before. Every single day. So you need a human touch. And that's what Nations has, all the automation. We have all that. We have it at our disposal. We use it. But we take pride in the human touch and taking people by the hand that need it and walking them through the home buying process. And at the end of the day, our goal is at the end of the day, when they close on their home, they look back and say, man, I am so glad I had C-Roc. I'm so glad I had Nations Lending. I'm so glad I had them on my side during this process of the home buying journey. And there's some people out there that have high credit score and plenty of money and know what they've done. They've done it several times. And maybe they don't need as much human element with it. However, I still believe they do. Because at the end of the day, something could come up with a title problem. Something could come up with their income. And you need to have professionals involved jumping on that, handling it as quickly as possible. Because as in real estate, as they say, time is of the essence. Time can cost people money in real estate. So that's what we take pride in. We take pride in also helping real estate agents grow their businesses. A lot of lenders just go to real estate agents and say, hey, what can you get me? Do you have anybody that needs to be pre-approved? Can you help me with this? And we take pride at Nations Lending in watching real estate agents grow their business with things that we share with them how to do. So reach out to me, connect with me. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, at Mike Ciorrocco, all over Facebook, LinkedIn, and please subscribe to this podcast as well. This is the first episode, and I'm going to continue to get better. I'm dedicated to you. I'm going to commit to you that I'm going to get better at this as we go. Bring you awesome content. I'm studying every single day to become an expert at this, and bring great content to you to help you with your life and business. So anyway, thank you for joining me today. I love all of you. I appreciate all of you. And if there's anything that I can do to help you in any aspect of your life, all you got to do is ask. Thank you for being a part of the What Are You Made Of podcast. So that you don't miss future episodes, please rate and subscribe to the What Are You Made Of podcast on your favorite listening or viewing apps, and follow me on your favorite social media platforms. I would love to hear your stories and past experiences and engage with you further.